Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 1 of the Carbon Hour podcast. And today we'll be talking climate and the environment, taking a brief look at the latest blockchain news and events, and we'll be discovering a bit more about our guest today, Tommy. For those that are aware of us, this is not new to us. We've been doing Twitch Spaces for nearly a year now, with 35 episodes under our belt already, and we'll continue to produce these for the foreseeable future. The main difference between the Spaces and these new podcasts that we're launching is that these podcasts focus on individuals that aren't necessarily members of the blockchain community, but are contributing towards the environment or climate change in some way, shape, or form. And our guest today, Tommy, is a champion of the environment, having collected over 1,250 bags of trash. First, allow me to introduce my co-host for today, Jem. Jem, how are you?
Yes, all is well. All is good over here, and very happy to be part of this first podcast, my friend.
Exciting times, eh? Exciting
Mm-hmm.
times. What's new your end?
Oh, good. I'm on half term, so that Ben is the biggest highlight of the week.
I think the teachers look forward to it more than the kids, don't they?
Oh, yeah, we count down to it. It's like that. We cross off the days on the calendar.
This is the first break since Christmas. Is that right?
It is. Yeah, this term has been an additional week. So, yeah, it's been interesting. I've been talking to friends around the country, and the children are going back to school, whereas ours in our kind of borough are having their week off. So, yeah, that's what I would say. Exciting times.
Yeah, a welcome relief. Yeah,
Yeah, indeed. I think I just need the sleep. That's what it is.
The whole week sleeping to catch up.
Of course.
And Tom, great to have you here today with us. How are you?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me, guys.
Absolutely, our pleasure. I do have a question for you both, and this is a generic question. How do you keep yourself motivated in times where you really struggle to find the drive to get up and do something?
Jim, do you want to start?
Yeah, I don't mind starting this one. That's a very interesting question, Ben, because when people talk to me about motivation, I go back to this conversation that I had many years ago with a friend of mine at university. I was probably 19, and he said to me, if you're ever feeling demotivated, find that one thing in that activity that you are doing that you're being demotivated by, and put all your effort into that, and it will find you motivated, and it will pull you away from that demotivation. And I always go back to that. I'm grand old age of 47, but that conversation I had with the individual has, always stuck in the head. And I see you laughing. Yeah.
Wise words. Wise words.
Oh, most definitely.
How about you, Tom?
Yeah, when things get a little bit frustrating on my end, I feel like the thing that keeps me going is, all the people I follow out there on social media, on Twitter and Instagram, and I follow a lot of litter pickers out there, and just seeing all the work they're continuing to put in. When I start to feel a little bit, down about where things are standing, I just go out there, and those guys, everybody that's out there, just kind of keeps me motivated and feeling like, get yourself out of the hole here, get back out there and start doing some good work. So that's probably for me where I go to get kind of re-energized.
Yeah, I like that. I mean, surround yourself with the right people, that have that drive and doing something similar in a similar sort of field, I think is probably a key part of it, isn't it?
Yep. I agree.
Cool. So moving on to blockchain news and event side of things. Tommy, what's your thoughts on cryptocurrencies and blockchains such as Bitcoin? Is it something that you're sort of well versed in?
Not well versed, no. I'm aware of it. I hear a lot about it on the news and everything like that, but I'm not real familiar with how it works and everything like that.
Sure.
So kind of a novice from that
Yeah.
aspect, I guess.
Is it something that you'd be looking to sort of learn about, or is it, as and when it crosses your path, you'll maybe sort of venture into
Yeah, probably as it crosses my path. I mean, it's something that I kind of keep I'm aware of, but
yeah,
nothing imminent where I'm thinking about aggressively jumping in or anything like that. But
cool.
it is something that I kind of I'm curious about,
Sure.
but still kind of learning all about it, I guess.
No, that's great. That's great. So
You know,
just
do you mind if I jump in there, Ben?
of
There was
course.
something that you said, Tom. You said about being a novice. I'm going to be very honest. You could spend 3 to 4 months every day trying to learn about blockchain, trying to learn about what Bitcoin and BTC and understanding terminology. I would have called myself a novice even a year into me learning about it. This was a daily, going onto YouTube, trying to understand what some of this terminology meant. And sometimes I had, these massive misconceptions, but, then everything just kind of comes together as a milkshake in, if you don't mind me use that analogy. But then it all becomes very clear after that persistence of trying to learn. So yeah, we all start somewhere, Tom.
Yep.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And it is tricky to sort of navigate those waters when you first start looking at it. But in terms of, there's a lot of material out there now because it's been around so long and because it's becoming a bit more mainstream, I'd say. I think there's quite a bit of material out there, especially on the likes of YouTube, where there's videos, there's explainers, and that show how it all sort of works and comes together really, and sort of the really sort of the real concept behind it all. So it's definitely worth exploring if you are interested.
Yeah.
So in terms of Bitcoin, I want to look at obviously the latest news, and that is that the last month the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission, or the SEC, finally approved Bitcoin ETFs in the US. In the short term, this led to a temporary spike in price for Bitcoin, and Bitcoin ETF owners claim to have seen a huge volume of users interacting with billions of dollars worth of Bitcoin. So I guess this is more focused towards yourself, Jen, but regarding the long term, what impact do you think this Bitcoin ETF will have?
Personally, there's two aspects which I feel which there might be a change in. I think there'll be more volatility within the space, as in you probably find a spike and then a dip and then another spike, and it just be it won't be stable as people might believe it will be. And for me, as soon as that announcement came out, I kind of felt this centralized feeling. And I don't know how others would feel me saying that, or probably even join me in saying that, but I just felt this kind of centralized feeling.
Yeah, it does make sense because a lot of the the big operators of Bitcoin, the miners, that they are worth millions and well, billions actually of dollars, like the big ones, like you got Marathon Holding, for example. So yes, it is very hard for someone just to start up with their own mining rig and do well. You get the odd lucky person, but generally speaking, you have to be part of some sort of consortium, really, it seems. I think for me, my thoughts in terms of the Bitcoin ETF news is that it helps build legitimacy for blockchain and cryptocurrency overall, and it's something which I think people were very sort of reserved and concerned about before, is that if it's not going to be accepted as a mainstream thing, then it's going to be hard for other people to buy into it and sort of accept the technology and this new currency base, really, as it is. So I think it's that legitimacy side of things, I think, is good for the whole ecosystem, really.
Do you know, I agree with you there, Ben. I think my 2 points were probably, borderline on the negative aspects of the announcement itself. But I do agree with you. Definitely the points that you've made.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so the bit that I'm sure everyone's been waiting for. I'm very pleased to introduce to the listeners Tom, the litter picking champion that has undoubtedly made a tremendous impact on the local environment, improving public health and protecting wildlife considerably. Tom, welcome, mate.
Hey, thanks for having me, guys.
This is absolutely our pleasure. I'm very excited to get going with all this. So, for those listeners that haven't come across your Twitter handle, which is your Twitter page, which is Tommy Picks Up Trash, please introduce yourself and tell us a little bit more about what you do.
Yeah, my name is Tommy. I go by Tom, but then for the Twitter purposes, social media, Tommy felt like a bit more of a catchier name to use. So Tommy Picks Up Trash seemed a little better than Tom Picks Up Trash. But yeah, probably about 2 years ago, I started to really get involved and more aggressive with my litter picking that I was doing. And um, a couple months after, I was doing a lot of street cleaning, and uh, we live close to a creek here. We live in Clearwater, Florida, part of the year, and part of the year we live in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, in the States. And there was a creek right down the road from where we live, and I decided to wander on down there and just check out what it might look like, because
Yeah.
we had done some volunteer group events at a different part of the creek. Anyway, when I got down to the creek, I was blown away. I saw scenes that I didn't imagine I would see in this country, quite frankly. I thought these were scenes that were off in a far off distant land. So when I saw that, that's when I got really hooked and decided, I want to focus a lot of my cleaning efforts on cleaning up our waterways. And, for almost 2 years now, that's really where my main focus has been. When I'm in Clearwater, I'm cleaning up Stevenson Creek. It's a small creek where we live. And when I'm in Pittsburgh, I work on the Ohio River in Pittsburgh and try to clean up that waterway. And I enjoy it. Gives me a chance. A lot of times I'm out on my kayak. I'm out in nature. So there's
Right.
really a lot to like about it. There's also frustration with it. It's a nonstop flow. And I've been in that next stage where I'm trying to get some of the local politicians to try to put through some positive action and measures to curb the flow, because our waterways are really getting hammered, and I don't think nearly enough people understand just how bad it is. And
Yeah.
this isn't just some far off ocean where some of the big groups are taking great steps. Yeah, the local waterways are really much worse than I think most people would really understand.
Yeah, and I think that's something that your videos really do highlight is, wherever you start up in a place, there's just like rubbish everywhere, and it looks like just a mammoth task just from the get-go.
Yeah, no doubt. It's really shocked me. I mean, and it just, I keep finding new areas in the creek and on the river up in Pittsburgh where I work. And every new area I find, it's just as bad as the last area that I cleaned up. So, it's really, and the shocking thing really is when I clean up at this creek in Clearwater, the creek is only 3 miles long. So it's a
Wow.
very small body of water. But to see just how much litter is
Yeah.
sitting in the mangroves down here and in that creek on the shores, it's just hard to understand and grasp. So yeah, it's a huge problem, and I think hopefully I'm trying to raise some awareness and trying to get, like I said, some of the local politicians to take some positive steps here. So.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's absolutely brilliant. You mentioned you've been going for a couple of years now as well. Does it feel like you're making a dent, or does it feel like a bit of an uphill battle sometimes?
A bit of both, I guess. The areas I've cleaned, honestly, they have never been touched before. And,
Yeah.
they're areas that are not easily accessible. So, I'm seeing some places that have had decades worth of abuse that no one's ever gotten to before. But you know, I also revisit some areas, and I noticed, you know, some improvement from that aspect. But still, it feels like the continual flow is still a little bit more than I would like to see. Um, so yeah, it's, I guess, a little bit of both. It does feel like I'm making a dent, but in the same respect, it feels like it's a never-ending process here. So
Sure. Yeah.
yeah,
I can understand, like you said, there's the proud moments, but I can imagine there's a heap of frustration, especially when you arrive at a new place and it's just, yeah, like I said, some of the images, it's just it's almost like
it
a
is.
landfill.
Yeah, it really is. It's like a landfill, and that's just the parts we see. You know, when I pick up in Pittsburgh, I'll get out of my kayak and walk along some of the shallower parts, and I'm just pulling out huge milk cartons. I mean, the amount of litter that is even buried underneath, under the water,
Yeah.
you know, in shallow water that isn't seen, it just kind of lets your mind wander like, wow, how bad is it really in the parts of the river or the creek that I can't even see? So,
Yeah. Jem.
Yeah, Tom, I noticed in a few of your videos where you just mentioned about revisiting a particular creek, and you said that there was one where you revisited after 2 months, and you could see again the whole collection of plastic bottles and bags, etc. That might it's got you've got to have that feeling of being disheartened, but then equally on top of that, you know that you're making that difference and making that particular dent. So yeah, it's going back to that question that you said. You know, it's that how do you motivate yourself in that particular way to then carry that on again?
yeah, I mean, it is disheartening. Again, there's so many people dealing with this globally. You know, I kind of, you know, try to go to them for some a source of refueling myself. But it is tough sometimes for certain because there's so much flowing in, and it just, again, it feels like sometimes you're just a hamster in a wheel. But you know, at the end of the day, removing it is still better than letting it sit there. So, you know, even if it just keeps flowing, getting it out is still a better idea than just throwing your hands up and saying, "Well, the heck with it." So,
Yeah, Jem. You have some more questions, I think, buddy.
Yeah, I did. This one extends onto the question I just posed, and it was what have you seen like in the time that you've been doing this? What have you seen that is should I say a recurring issue? What is the most recurring probably problem that you noticed in your cleanups?
well, I mean, in terms of recurring, I guess I would go to, I started counting plastic bottles that I would
Mm-hmm.
pick up. And I'm over 11,000 plastic bottles just in the last 9 months. That's in 9 months when I just started counting plastic bottles.
Mm-hmm.
And the large majority of that was taken out of the waterways. You know, sometimes I do some street cleanups and I
Yeah.
count some plastic bottles there, but the vast majority of the 11,000 was were pulled out of our waterways. So that's the item that I consistently keep seeing. And you know, I don't. We're in such a society where people just go to the convenience store, grab a bottle of water or grab a whatever, and maybe they leave the convenience store, walk home, throw it on the ground on the street, and think nothing of it. But
Mm-hmm.
that eventually finds its way to the waterways. And so plastic bottles are the recurring item that I constantly keep seeing, and that's why I started counting them. Obviously, there's so much else, but
Yeah.
that's the one item that is seemingly a never-ending issue.
With regards to these plastic bottles, I know that in England, if a plastic bottle is not cleaned or there's some kind of damage to the bottle or it's really dirty, this particular bottle cannot be recycled. Is that the same principle that happens over in America?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'm not 100% sure. I
Mhm.
think so. The way I usually handle it is when I pick up a bottle out of the river,
Mhm.
if it's dirty, I'm not going to even try to bring it home to recycle it, because I just assume it's not going to be recycled. Wish cycling isn't necessarily an answer either. So, from what I understand, it kind of needs to be clean. And,
Mhm.
that's why I kind of like focus on only something that looks clean is is something that I'll take home and recycle or put in a recycle bin. So that's how I feel like it works here. But
Mhm.
we're not always real educated on the intricacies of the whole process, So sometimes it's sort of a gray area, and a
Yeah.
lot of people just make up their mind, I guess, on their own and figure out, well, is this recyclable? Is this not? And then take it from there. So
I hear that.
yeah.
Ben,
And any more, Jim, from your side?
I've got a few questions later on. I'll pass it on to you, Ben.
No worries, mate. And you just mentioned about like the plastic bottles and such. In the UK, the UK government has recently banned the use of certain single-use plastics, like plastic cutlery, plastic cups. Like you'd have a little gathering, a little party. They've started to ban that. Is that something that the US is looking at, or is that something that you'd like your local governing bodies to look at?
Well, I certainly would. Yeah, absolutely. I know in Pittsburgh, they did institute a plastic bag ban
Okay.
where if you go to the grocery store in the city of Pittsburgh, um, you no longer will be given a plastic bag. You got to bring your own reusable bag. But I can tell you, in the States, this place is all about convenience, and
Mm.
people do not, the vast majority of people do not want to have any convenience taken out of their life, even if it means they got to do something as simple as just take their own bag to the grocery store. So it can be a tough sell for some, but there are cities that are implementing some positive steps like that. I haven't seen anything in terms of the plastic cutlery yet, or even the straws,
Yeah.
things like that. So right now, as far as I understand, the plastic bag ban is something that is taking hold in a lot of cities, and a lot of cities are starting to implement. I think some states like California are a bit more aggressive with some of the different items they're able to start removing and banning, but it's a state by state thing here, and not all states are on board. So.
Yeah. Yeah, Jem, sorry.
Yeah, just to extend on that, Tom, over in England, many years ago, I'll say when I was a young chap running around the roads, you always seen these blue bags, these white bags, finding their way in bushes, tucked away under these trees and in the undergrowth. Since we've put this ban of single-use plastic bags, there's been such a vast difference, but it did take a while for the mindset to change. There were
Yep.
people doing all manner of nonsense. They were stealing baskets just to protest in some ludicrous manner. But I personally feel it's made such a difference. I don't know, Ben. I don't know in your local area or your parks. Our parks now are free from these bags.
Yeah, it's definitely made a dent, like a good dent. Instead of an outright ban, it's I think it's is it 10p now? So you got to pay. It's
Well,
essentially a tax.
they're the reusable the reusable bags. Yeah, you're right. It is
Yeah,
10p, 15p, 20p. It depends.
yeah, and yeah, I completely agree. It's had a positive impact. And it's the same as the plastic straws. They got rid of them, and when they first brought out the sort of cardboard straws, at first they were all just falling apart in your cup, and it'd last for probably 2 minutes, and then you were done. So, but and this is the big thing I think is you have to sort of take these leaps forward, and then the technology grows once the demand and the necessity is there for it to be developed and grow. So I think it's one of those where you just need to take those leap forwards as a society and accept that there's some minor inconvenience to start with. And then, like I said, progress happens and innovation happens and things get better. So it's just taking those early steps.
Yeah. And I think, I mean, just making people more aware at some of the negative effects of all this stuff would go a long way at helping. So sometimes I don't think people understand just how serious of an issue it is. Even if they're getting their plastic bag from the grocery store and throwing it away, it's still going somewhere and it's not going to be recycled. So it's still dragging, it's a drag on the planet, So I think just more awareness for people will start to win some people over, So it's just a constant battle there, trying to educate people, including myself, on all the things that we're dealing with and all the impacts.
Yeah, absolutely. And what do you think is the best way to go about that? Do you think it's teaching them early in school when they're younger to sort of appreciate the planet more and to be more mindful? Do you think, I know some people might say like certain ages of adults might be sort of lost causes, but do you think we can do more to sort of involve the local community somehow?
I absolutely do. I mean, number one, I think it starts in the schools, getting kids at a young age to teach them about the effects of littering, or just the effects of using all kinds of things like that. But another thing is, I remember 30 years ago in the States, we used to have something. It was like an advertising thing. Don't be a litter bug, and
Yeah.
it was a big thing. They'd have commercials, they'd have billboards. That's gone away. There are no more advertising that I see basically trying to, remind people, hey, don't litter. There are problems with that, and that kind of advertising has gone away. And I don't think it's necessarily too late to teach an old dog new tricks. I mean, I think you just have to invest some money to remind people, hey, don't throw that piece of litter on the ground. Here's what happens to it. So it's something that currently isn't being done here. It used to be done more, because I do remember it as a kid, seeing a lot of that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But it's kind of gone. It's kind of been forgotten here in the last couple of decades, I'd say.
Yeah, and it's that is the big area that's missing into it. And you go to certain countries, Germany is like a great example. If you've ever been to Germany, the streets are just almost immaculate. You will really struggle to find litter in the streets in Germany. And I believe it's very much like the same for Japan, where they've got a lot of respect for the local environment. And it just it's that culture change that's needed, isn't it, really?
Yep, no doubt.
And Jem, just with regards to like the schooling side of things, obviously you're a teacher, and obviously you've done a bit with your pupils, haven't you, before, to sort of try and
for me, I've created a group at school, called the environment group. So it's the school environment group, should I say? So what I do, we've got litter pickers. We discuss the whole thing about being more sustainable, planting fruiting trees. We've got an orchard because of me around the school grounds. We've brought in some old Victorian fruiting trees as well. So what I'm trying to do is raise that awareness for children to actually appreciate and understand that. It is taught within our curriculum as well about to look after the environment, and that's within our science, and that's part of the curriculum when we're talking about animals and their habitat. So it is implemented. So there is that raise of awareness, but is it a big awareness? Maybe I think we need to probably do a little bit more, I would say. And there's this thing that we were just discussing there about, you said Germany's streets are clean. Over in England, there was this push for people to throw their chewing gum in the bin, because we were spending, and I had to Google the amount, and it was £7 million to clean the chewing gum off the roads. £7 million. And my daughter pointed this out today. She was looking on the floor while we were gallivanting around London today. And she said, what are these white dots around? And I said, that's chewing gum. And the local authorities are spending hundreds and thousands of pounds just to tidy it up. So yeah, we had some kind of initiative on TV about bin it, and after chewing it, bin it. There was some kind of advert, I can remember.
Yeah. And like I said, that was a few years ago. I can recall it was a few years ago, but like I said, there's not been that much since. It seems to have been something that's just been almost forgotten about, but just it's not been attacked, has it?
Indeed, it hasn't.
And Tom, and with your litter picking and your adventures that you go on with it, do you do it with yourself, or do you do it with a group of people, a community?
I generally like to do it on my own. My wife and I do belong to a volunteer group up in Pittsburgh, and we meet up with them every week to kind of clean up the trails and stuff like that, cut back vegetation, stuff like that. Generally, when I do the litter picking stuff, I do go on my own. Occasionally, someone else might tag along with me. But for myself, I generally like to use it as a chance to break away out there on my own. It's really kind of a cool experience, and I'm not opposed to getting together with some people occasionally, but I kind of like to use it as just a chance to clear the head, and for a couple hours and just do my thing. So
yeah, I love that. I can completely appreciate that. It's that old adage, like, go out and touch grass. It's and literally, this is touch grass and see all the trash, unfortunately. But it's one of those where you can go out and like I said, have a couple of hours to yourself and breathe in the fresh air and do something good simultaneously. It's a win-win, isn't it? Really,
it really is.
Yeah.
And it gives you that focus as well, because you're going out there to do a job, as in that you're wanting to do. I'm not saying that someone next to you is going to be talking and chewing your ear in some way, but at least it gives you that focus, and I can see your mind being cleared with that focus.
Yeah, no doubt.
In terms of getting other people involved and encouraging others, how would you encourage others to begin their journey of going out and picking up litter? Because I'm sure there's many people that see the trash. No one's blind to it, but how would you advise them to get started?
So I would say there's two ways. Number one, everybody's a little different. Some people like to be with people, and do a group thing, and some people like to just go out on their own and just do their own thing. So it kind of depends on which person you might fall into. But there are volunteer groups certainly in every city and area you can find they're going to get together on a weekly or a monthly basis. So you could always start that way. And see if it's something that you want to kind of build on yourself, or walk out on your own, or you don't even have to make it a real separate time slot for yourself. I see so many people on Twitter. There's a guy, I believe he's in Scotland, and you just see him. He posts 5-7 posts a day. Wow. As he walks during his day to the train or to work and from work, he's showing you he picks up a handful of trash and is throwing in the bin right there. I mean, something as simple as that. And that's really, I remember, that's kind of how I got started towards the end of my towards the end of my job in the city. There was so much trash around. I just started picking up whatever I could on the way to work, to and from. So you don't always have to separate out a piece of your day to do this and make it a real big thing. Picking up a couple plastic bottles on your walk to and from on your daily routine, that does a world of good. If everybody was doing that, we'd be in a really good space right now. So, yeah.
Oh, brilliant. Yeah.
I agree with you. Sorry, Ben. I do agree with you there. And I think there's a mindset that needs to be changed, because, you see people just stepping over bottles or stepping over these cans and bags, be it. But then they are not doing anything about it. You know, that's not a negative at all in their direction. But I feel it's about noticing that can or that bottle or that particular bag and doing something about it. I think it's the doing something about it mindset that needs to probably change in our society at this moment, because I think we're just too driven to get from A to B, but we're not actually looking to our sides, unfortunately.
No doubt. And even just picking up an item or two, even if it's an item or two a day. I mean, there's 8 billion of us. If 8 billion of us picked up an item or two a day, we'd be in a pretty good spot in a couple
Yeah.
days probably. But so yeah, it's just that mindset of, hey, you see a piece of litter, just pick something up, anything. It's not for everybody. You understand that, but
Sure.
that alone would really help.
Yeah, I think that's fantastic. Like you said, you don't have to go out your way and put aside 2 hours of your day. Like you said,
No.
just if it's on your way, if you walking that route anyway, like I said, to catch the bus, to catch the train, just pick it up, and it's I think that's great. So for yourself, and I guess this is part of the motivation again, but do you have a specific goal that you're working towards?
Yeah, I mean, one of my goals really at this point is trying to get the attention of my municipalities to take some ownership here. And actually, I just finally yesterday had a bit of a breakthrough. I emailed the city council members at the city here a couple weeks ago about the issue. I got no response, and I had been kind of trying some other avenues. But then yesterday morning, I said, you know what, I'm going to email the city council again. And what right away, one of the city council members emailed me back and said, hey, I really appreciate what you're doing. I was trying to sell them on the idea of installing a trash boom in one section of the creek where I thought it would make sense. And the city council member got back to me and said, you know what, I think that would make sense. And it's something I'm going to bring up with our city manager this week. So, that kind of makes you feel like, oh, someone's listening, that's all you need is just someone to kind of hear you. So that's really where I'm at. I'm trying to get some of the cities to see just how bad things are and just implement some positive changes. We don't have to get perfect here. We're not going to keep every piece of litter off the streets or out of the waterway, but we need to start doing something positive, something. And so that's really my next phase, where I'm trying to take that next step so that we can stop some of this in its tracks and make it a little easier going forward. So
yeah, that's absolutely fantastic. I think it's one of those, isn't it, where it's about trying to sort of, I guess, create that movement to get that culture change, and it shouldn't be on you to do that yourself. But if you're raising it, brings the attention of those that are responsible for the local area, it is you're bringing that to their attention. It's now their duty pretty much to sort of have a look themselves, do something about it, and hopefully get others within the council and the local community sort of aware and involved.
Yep, no doubt. And a lot of it is, again, I was surprised at how bad it is, and a lot of it is hidden from plain sight. I mean, even if you take your kayak and kayak on the waterway here, you wouldn't see almost any of this.
Yeah.
A lot of it is hidden behind a lot of the vegetation that kind of hangs over the creek and the river. So some of it is just, most people don't know. And I'm hoping to kind of break through that, things are pretty bad here, and trying to get, the cities to realize that and to take some positive steps. So yeah, like you said, but that's where I'm at right now. The next phase.
Yeah. Hats off, man. It's very admirable, very impressive. So it's great what you're doing.
Thank you.
Jem, any more questions from your
Yes,
side?
I do. I've got this is a bit of a two-pronged question. So it's during your time, since you've started doing this, what impacts have you seen in the environment worsen, and also what have you seen in the environment getting better, or the improvements? So it's just more of what you've observed. What have you seen worsen, and what have you seen to improve since you've started doing what you're doing?
Well, one of the things when I think of a worsened, the only thing I can think of really right there is, so I live in Florida right now, and Florida
Mhm.
is well known for its wildlife, snakes, and all that kind of stuff. And
Mhm.
one of the things that I've been shocked by, because I'm out in the mangroves and I'm in some
Mhm.
spots where you would expect to run into some wild animals that you maybe wouldn't even want to run into, but I can tell you that I see almost no wildlife
Wow.
in these mangroves. I have only seen one black snake through all the work I've done in here.
Mm.
I and I'm in some areas you would expect to see some snakes, and I do not see that those small kind of wildlife on the land.
Mm.
There's plenty of birds and fish and things like that
Mhm.
in the waterways, but that's the one thing that's kind of shocked me is I think things have maybe things are so bad that it's not even suitable for an animal to live in,
Wow.
so that's kind of a disheartening thing. In terms of what is better, um, I don't know. I guess I just have grown more of an appreciation
Mhm.
for the nature and in the environment that I live in. I didn't fully experience it the way I'm experiencing it now. And when you clean an area, you kind of get a good feeling of, oh, this is the way it should be. You see the mangroves kind of cleaned out versus what
Yeah.
they look like. And obviously, you know, mostly the flow is, if you go over an area enough, the place looks a lot better than what you
Yeah.
originally found it. So I guess those are the two things I'd say from that aspect. But
Do you know, Tom, you mentioned about the lack of wildlife around those mangroves. You know, in my teaching time, we speak about mangroves and the abundance of, wildlife and the diversity of wildlife. And then what you're saying is it's quite shocking, to be honest with you, because mangroves are, for what I know, are are a are a big thing of the support for the environment. You know how it how it encourages growth of particular animals and such, and also it stops floods and tsunamis, or should I
yep.
say it kind of creates that barrier, and it's quite shocking. You know, what do you think people should? I think it's got to be going back to our original question here. You know, there needs to be some kind of initiative about the mangroves, and I'm sure there are initiatives about saving mangroves and such. So, I do think there needs to be that push for that. And again, it's not a question really. It's more of a statement. I think there needs to be a raise of awareness, and what you're doing, Tom, is admirable, and it's in that direction of raising that awareness.
Yeah, no, I
Yeah.
agree. And I know there are definitely a lot of groups down here that are passionate with saving and restoring the mangroves.
Mm.
And the mangroves that I go into, they look healthy. It's just from the aspect of I was shocked really to not run into the wildlife that you would
Yeah.
expect to see in those mangroves, and that's a little bit very
Mm.
worrisome to me. So,
I hear that.
yeah,
Like Ben, like our River Thames back in the Victorian days, where nothing was surviving, and then there was an initiative put in to tidy up. The sewage system was diverted, and you know to see salmon back in our River Thames, it tells you that we've now done what we need to do to kind of restore the balance in some particular way.
Yeah,
Mm.
100%. Because before humans inhabited those bits of land and
Yeah.
affected these mangroves areas, like you said, you expect it to be thriving. You expect it to be good population of a variety of species of fish and animals and birds. And like you said, it's only when you sort of stop, just take a moment and sort of really think and look at the effects that the local population is having, that you can go, we need to do something about it. And I think with the work that Tom's doing and speaking to the local politicians, that is the way forward, because it is on the local politicians. They are elected. We live in a democracy where they are elected and they are to serve the people. So that this is the only route forward really, is to sort of bring it to attention. And this is where national parks come into play. This is where protected lands and protected species start to be sort of observed, and certain regulations enforced, which is like I said, only comes from action, which is, as you said, for the River Thames, it's done good. And hopefully for the likes of Florida and Pittsburgh, that will also have good impact as well.
Yeah.
Cool. Just finally, Tom, what's your take on the US's stance on climate change and the environment? Do you think enough's sort of being done about it? I know when Biden was elected, a lot of what he was sort of talking about was sort of stopping as many oil and gas projects and starting to look more towards clean renewable energy and that side of things, which hasn't really come to fruition that much. Obviously, there's been a lot of political issues at bay, Ukraine, Russia, and oil and gas shortages, etc. But what's your take on the US?
Yeah, I think the climate change issue it's been made into a divisive political issue here. I think more and more people are understanding that we do have a problem that we need to address. And what you said about Biden is correct. I mean, I think I saw something where the U.S. is producing more oil than we've ever produced in our history. So, on one aspect, he's under pressure because gas prices are still higher than people would like to see them. So, I guess his administration figures, well, let's pump out more oil to help with gas prices. But then on the other aspect, he's getting hammered on the left because he's producing more oil. He's open, he's not closing, I guess, gas wells as quickly as we should be in those kind of aspects. They did put through some positive climate change stuff. I want to say a year or two ago. It was called the Inflation Reduction Act, and it was supposed to provide some funding for renewable energy. So I think that was a good step. I think we are seeing more from a renewable standpoint here. It's just not happening, I guess, as quickly as everybody wants to see it or it needs to happen. So I think there is progress there, but it's wonky, it's choppy, politics in this country is a very difficult game, and 50 different states, a lot of different political views, and it's tough to get everybody to buy into anything in this place, quite frankly.
Yeah, and you mentioned people want the climate change to be sort of dealt with quicker. 2023 saw a global average temperature increase versus pre-industrial times of 1.5 degrees C, which is what we were trying to prevent by 2050. It's not to say that it's going to be 1.5 degrees this year overall, but it is like highly concerning. In terms of, like you said, that it's been a divisive issue. Do you think Biden's softened his policies because the climate change and ESG is being attacked so heavily by Republicans, and they're using that quite heavily in terms of trying to win voters over?
Yeah, I think he is trying to kind of play that middle game, trying to not alienate a certain side completely, so I think he does try to play that, and he ran on being someone that we would unite the country. And I guess you could have arguments whether you think that's happening or not, but I do think he's trying to kind of straddle and make everybody a bit happy and not upset Republicans necessarily completely from that aspect and issue. So, it is a tough thing. Like I said, gas prices in this country, people see it at the level it is. It's still not really as bad as what it was a year or two ago. But, it's a big driver in this country. If gas prices are high, people aren't going to be happy.
Yeah.
And so him and his administration, I know, are very cognizant of that. And they have, I guess, maybe implemented some things or tried to soften the blow on those gas prices. And of course, that isn't really great for the environment and climate change from the climate change aspect. So it is a tug of war there, and it's tough. It's a tough thing to try to do, but I think that's where this kind of the state of play is here.
Yeah,
and of course, we've got big elections coming up in 2024 again, so it's plenty still on the table to have to figure out here.
Yeah, definitely, absolutely, and it's very much the same case here, really, in the UK as well. It's the Conservative government, which is the current government, were very much trying to push the UK to be at the forefront of this renewable energy transition. And since the oil and gas prices went up, triggered by like the war in Ukraine, we've taken a big step backwards, and we've opened up brand new oil and gas licenses in the North Sea, lots of them as well. Open up a coal mine as well, which is completely the inverse of what everyone was expecting, with the way the government was sort of pushing things and the policies. So it's it seems to be, like I said, triggered by the here and now, and trying to reduce the impact of these high oil and gas prices, and that's definitely seems to have had an impact really across the world with regards to the progress that was being made towards climate change.
Yep, no doubt.
Jem, any more from your end?
I have one last question here, and I've written this one down. What one single change would you like to see? So this could be a now, or this could be a later change. So one single change would you like to see within what you are doing itself, for a now or for a later change?
From the litter aspect, you mean?
I'll be honest with you. As wide as you wish.
Okay, that's a good question. I guess the one biggest change, I guess more of an education. I do think we need to put our proper resources into properly educating people, from my aspect, the litter aspect, of just how bad things are. And, again, dumping some more money into making people more aware that, hey, by the way, don't litter, here's what it actually looks like. It's not good for the planet. And it's just, so I guess from that aspect, just an education. And, we've also gotten to a place where there's just so much single use purchasing that goes on. And, from that aspect, I think more of an education too, of letting people understand just the negative impacts of just all that single use purchasing. And even if you throw it in the garbage, it's still going somewhere for the most part. And it's a real drag on the planet and everything. So I guess that's what I would say from that aspect.
I'd like to definitely agree with you there, me being from the education background. So I definitely think it is that for me too.
Super. Oh, cool. Just transitioning over to the final segment then, which is where we take a more specific look at climate change. And we're going to focus today on recycling. So recycling is obviously a powerful tool in our fight against waste and environmental degradation. A couple of facts Recycling 1 ton of aluminium cans is the equivalent of preventing 1,024 gallons of gasoline or 21 barrels of oil being consumed. And some countries are doing better, far better than others, with Germany boasting a 60% recycling versus general waste disposal. That's a very high recycling versus general waste there. The first question is, what can we do better to make sure more waste ends up in the bin and, better yet, is recycled?
Good question. I mean, have you guys implemented a deposit return scheme in the UK?
I don't believe we have. Well, not in my local area.
Okay, because I think I've seen different countries have started to implement that, and I was just curious if you guys thought that was a good idea, or it seems like a good idea. Obviously, I could see the argument against it maybe from some aspect, but I was just wondering if it was implemented there and if you thought it was a good idea.
Just briefly explain us, Tom, what the deposit return scheme is.
Yeah, so the deposit return scheme is basically if you buy a plastic bottle or an aluminum can, they have certain places I've seen that you can take it and you get a refund, a partial refund, if you take it back and deposit it. So it's that kind of a plan that incentivizes folks to actually bring it back to have it recycled.
Do you know, Tom, we did have this in our country many moons ago. I would say again, I'm going to have to stretch back again, Ben, back to the 1980s. We had it then where you would buy a bottle, where a bottle of lemonade, and we're talking about a glass bottle, and this bottle would then have a numerical value attached to it, and it could be 1p, it could be 5p, be it a cent or 5 cents. So yeah, we did have that scheme, and I can remember being in single digit age, collecting these bottles and you know, getting this 1 or 2 pence in exchange. But yeah, that soon filtered out. I don't believe we have a system like that.
Yeah, we don't have it here, and I can tell you, things are haphazard here at best. You know, it varies state to state. Some states, you know, I'm in Florida now. My parents live in a condominium complex, and because the people couldn't put their items in the right dumpster, the condominium complex was able to just choose to take it away because they didn't want to be fined, because they were going to be fined for folks not putting the right recycling in the right bin. So they were able to just take it away, which obviously isn't good. So when I go to my parents and visit my parents, I have my parents hold the recyclable stuff for me, and I take it home and I take it and dump it off to recycling center. But so there are even some states here where they're better with, or they're more aggressive from the recycling aspect than others. There's different rules and everything here. And there was one other thing I was going to say about that. I can't remember what it was, but yeah, things are a little. I live in Clearwater, and 2 years ago, it was uncovered that all of the recycling that the city of Clearwater was collecting was being thrown in the regular trash. And the guy who was running the recycling department got fired, obviously. But so
kind of expected that, yeah.
Yeah, so things have been a little, you know, things are far from perfect over here from a recycling aspect.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's like a key issue, isn't it? You know, if the trust is broken for something like that, where you know, and we've had it in one of our Twitter spaces before as well, where exactly that was brought up, where someone was saying, well, what's the point? Because, you know, a lot of the recycling just goes to the waste anyway, so I don't bother, is what this one person said. And you know, when that is an actual thing and that is a news story that is broken, it just completely breaks down the trust, doesn't it? And people just go, oh, we're not going to bother then.
Right. Yep.
Yeah, that's mad. It,
Do you,
in, go
you
on,
know,
John.
Ben, I was on the train today and I read this advertisement and it said, if your business cannot recycle a particular item, then they said they will ship it to another business that can recycle it. And
Wow.
I thought that was just ingenious. And I think that was IFF, I believe. You know, don't quote me. I was just reading it with my daughter, but yeah, it was IFF, and I was like, that is such a good way of promoting. So instead of just dumping it, give it to somebody else that can recycle. So maybe more initiatives like this and making it not just a poster of 1 foot by 2 foot. So it needs to be a bit more out there in the general eye.
Yeah, 100%. Because the whole cradle to grave situation where something's produced and then it just goes to waste. That is just it's not a sustainable way to carry on, and we need more cradle to cradle solutions. I do have a note here. There's a company called iStone, and they manufacture kitchen tops that are made out of 100% recycled glass. So these companies can work with consumers to promote and even incentivize recycling of certain products, i.e. glass, because their products are made out of it. So it is absolutely the case there where we need more of these initiatives, I think. And I think people can get on board then and can sort of think, okay, this isn't just going to the general waste, the landfill. This is actually going to be used for something. My second question is, do you think product manufacturers such as Unilever, Heinz, Coca-Cola should equally bear the responsibility of ensuring their products' waste is recycled? And an example of this is doing better to show within the design, the packaging, show that it can be recycled, for example.
It would certainly seem like a good idea, a good thing. Yes, no doubt. I mean, anything that can be implemented to make it more recyclable or help the planet would seem like a good idea. Yeah.
Would you support a tax being implemented to companies such as Heinz, Coca-Cola, if they're making products that cannot be recycled?
Yeah, I mean, again, that would seem like a good idea. In this country, I know anybody that hears the 3-letter word is a it is usually a deal breaker, but it certainly seems like, again, that would be a good idea. That, yeah, if you can't make something that is easily recyclable, well, then it's going to cost you. So you do have to kind of put something in there to incentivize companies to make things, to think of the planet, first and foremost. But things, there's so much money that changes hands from a lobbying aspect and everything, that trying to get these kind of changes seems like, I don't know, it seemed like splitting the atom at this point. Just seems like a real high bar to go, but obviously it would certainly make sense. Yeah,
Absolutely.
Do you know, Ben, I've noticed I would say within the last 5 years that reading these bottles and these Tetra Packs, etc., that they used to say the bottle cap could not be recyclable, but
Yeah.
the body can. I'm seeing less and less of what cannot be recycled, and I'm seeing a lot more that can be. So you can see the direction of movement. So it is a positive. Taxation. If they were to be taxed, then the tax money would need to definitely go into some sustainable resource, or go into a particular technology. But yeah, I'm with Tom. As soon as you say tax, I think we're talking about people being burned at the stake.
Yeah. And generally, they're probably just going to offlay those taxes onto the price of the product. So people are going to be paying for it anyway, most likely. But
act of the day.
Yeah. And I think I think you make a good point there. I think it's one of those where like I said, certain parts of packaging is recyclable, certain parts aren't. But I think it's one of those where, as you said, you said yourself, Tom, the lobbying, the money that changes hands for these big companies and oil and gas companies, for example, is huge amounts of money. But I do think that enough momentum, enough voices can have an impact. And even as much money as these lobbyists are throwing around, I think if enough people want change, I think it can happen. So I think it's just more about people sharing their thoughts and being more vocal, I guess, to packaging being fully recyclable or that side of things.
Yeah.
Cool. That sort of wraps everything up, really. Any final thoughts from anyone?
I just, I appreciate you guys having me on. I mean, I enjoyed the discussion. I mean, I thought it was really good to talk about all these things with you guys. I mean, and again, yeah, just thanks for having me on, really.
I've got to say, Tom, it's been a pleasure to have you. It's been an education listening to you, and also the work that you're doing. You're highlighting aspects within the environment where maybe people are somewhat ignorant or blind to. So I've got to send out my appreciation to you and your excellent work that you're doing within your community and how you're impacting on the environment. Appreciate
Thanks so much. I appreciate that. Appreciate both you guys. So
yeah, and likewise, Tom. It's been I will say it's inspirational, really. It's one of these where people need to hear voices like yours. And there's a couple of really good points that you made. You don't have to go out your way to spend a couple hours picking up trash. You can do it even on your way to work, on the way to the shops, wherever. If you see it, pick it up and bin it. But then, as you said, it's good for the soul. It's good mentally, physically. You're getting out and about and getting the exercise. So that's a big win there, isn't there? And I think it's just one of those where people can hopefully listen to this and sort of be inspired and think, well, either put aside a bit of time or, like I said, on the way to wherever, just do the right thing.
Yep. No, well said.
And like what you said, Tom, you don't even have to create a group. You can just go out and go by yourself, stick your headphones on, and get on with life.
You really can, just as much time as you have, or if you have no time, like Ben was saying, along your daily routine, even picking up an item or two here or there is doing something good. I mean, so if you have the time, turn it into something. Find a place where you love to be. If it's try to find somewhere, go on a hike or whatever it is that you like to be out in nature. And if you can kind of marry the two, when you're out in nature, you see a piece of litter, just pick up. Again, you don't have to kill yourself here unless you want to, and then you can do that too. So whatever works for you.
For those that are interested, Tom's Twitter handle is at TJRPITT, and it's Tommy Picks Up Trash, picks with a C. Tommy, it's been really great listening to you. It's been it's really fantastic, and I hope people are, like I said, equally inspired, and I've also enjoyed listening to you as well. So thank you very much for your time. It's been great having you as our first guest, and you set the bar, you set that standard very high. So thank you so much.
Oh, thanks so much, guys. It's been great talking to you, and it's been educational for me as well. So I appreciate it.
Absolutely, our pleasure. Tom, Jem, thank you very much, gents.
Thank you very much,
Have a great night.
Tom and Ben.
Cheers on.
Thank you.